Thank you so much for the invitation to be here today to get to share with you about something that honestly maybe it's hard to talk about while we're eating lunch or on a break, and so I really appreciate you taking your time to come and dig in deep on some difficult subjects, but also to learn about some hopeful things that I believe are happening here in the Birmingham community. And I will just, if I can go ahead and name it, say it out loud, we need a little hope, right? I don't know if you watch the news, no matter your political persuasions, I think we can all acknowledge together that what we're talking about today, and interpersonal violence, sexual violence, domestic violence, is a part of the fabric and the conversation that we're maybe having even today in our country. And honestly, I've given enough talks where it's really depressing and we focus on all the really hard things to talk about, and then we all leave and we don't feel empowered maybe to do anything about what feels like a really difficult thing. And so I am committed to finding hope with you all here today and leaving with a hopeful word. But I do want to acknowledge that before we can get to that hopeful place, we have to dig into the difficult subjects, which is violence. And so I'm going to share some information with you today. We've got to do a definition. I want to talk a little bit about an assessment, and then sort of a hybrid presentation, talk about the work that's really a game changer here for Birmingham. To be clear, before I go any further, this is not an us and a them kind of subject. I think we can acknowledge that for many of us it is a personal experience. It is something that has affected our classmates, our family members, our friends, people across our community. And I think that's important for us to say that when 1 in 3 women, 1 in 4 men have experienced some type of physical, sexual violence or stalking in their lifetime, that we all can acknowledge that it affects me, it affects you, it affects all of us. And so again, I'm grateful that you all are having this conversation today. We know it's a global issue as well, right? Probably the past 30 years, I would say we've begun to see it more in terms of that, and certainly a public health issue. Men and women who experience rape or stalking by any perpetrator or physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime were more likely to report frequent headaches, chronic pain, difficulty sleeping, activity limitations, poor physical health, poor mental health, more so than men and women who did not experience these forms of violence. And so we have to go there, particularly for you all, where you are in your academic career and your studies today, and for where you will be when you do leave the university. This first slide that I have is really the best definition that I have ever found that really sums up what I learned from my clients, from the work that I've been involved in for the last 15 years. And so I'll read it. We can look at it together. Emotional, sexual, psychological control punctured by at least one threat or act of physical violence causing fear. And that comes from Lundy Bancroft, who has worked with abusers, batterers, perpetrators of violence for 30 years, and I had the opportunity to hear him speak a few years ago. This definition is reflected in some of his writings, The Batterer as Parent, and another book, Why Does He Do That? And it just really, it sums it up for me in a way that other, maybe more criminal justice oriented definitions do not. And so I think it's the control and the fear that you'll see in red there. That's what we're really talking about when we're talking about interpersonal violence. And so I share that with you today. That's sort of the framework for our work at One Place Family Justice Center. And I think it's important to acknowledge all of these components. Often we focus primarily on the physical aspects of the violence, but in fact, we have survivors that we work with that will tell us, you know, the physical violence wasn't the worst thing that I experienced. It was all of the other pieces, that control that was exerted over me, that took away my power and caused that fear that kept me trapped in the relationship. There's a researcher from Rutgers, his name is Evan Stark, and he's doing some amazing work around this field. And he has coined a new phrase coercive control, and he would like for us to start using that terminology, maybe in the space where we normally say domestic violence or domestic abuse. He says that really is a better indicator of what is going on in relationships where there is that power and control dynamic. He says that coercive control is a better term because it encompasses the variety of tactics that over time keep a person trapped in a relationship and afraid to try and escape the relationship. Many of the victims seeking assistance are experiencing multiple tactics to frighten them, to isolate them, degrade them, and subordinate them, along with some physical assaults and threats, and that is overwhelming day in and day out. So what does that look like? What is an example? He looked at me with that look, and I knew what it meant based on a previous incident of violence. He told me he was going to call DHR and I would lose custody of our children if I told anyone, and that no one would really believe what was going on. He has some pictures of me that he's going to post on social media if I don't comply. Before he assaults me, he tells me I'm fat and that no one else would ever want to be with me. Sometimes those tactics do rise to the level of a crime, and sometimes on their own they don't, but they keep that person under the abusive partner's control. Often there is physical violence, but sometimes that control can be obtained and maintained without that. And in fact, we know that 30% of women who were murdered by an intimate partner had no recorded history of physical abuse. So if we're continuing to limit our understanding and our definition of domestic violence to physical abuse, I think we may be missing it in a lot of situations, and that can be dangerous. I mentioned an assessment that I think is really important. Certainly whatever work you're going to be doing, whatever work you are doing currently, whoever your friends are, your roommates, your people in your family, these are really important things to keep in mind if you are confronted with this at any level in any space in your life. And so I think you all probably wear a lot of different hats, just like I do. And so just knowing that this research is out there and has been proven to be true time and time and time again is validating for me. When I feel sometimes a gut reaction or, that was a red flag for me, I can go back and go, this is why. Like this woman, Jacqueline Campbell from Johns Hopkins, who was here 18 months ago, maybe spoke at the School of Nursing. This is her work over a lot of years, and this is what she has found to be really the top indicators for lethality, which is obviously what we're concerned about in these relationships that can be so violent. So this is what she says, prior acts of domestic violence, if there has been domestic violence previously, the person who is the perpetrator in the current relationship, if they have perpetrated in the past, then that can be an indicator of domestic violence in the previous relationship. Any access to guns, I feel like that goes without saying, but exponentially increases the risk of harm for certainly the victim or survivor in the relationship, but also for other family members or others who are in close proximity. Estrangement, so this is what we call the person tried to escape. And we say escape. We don't say leave because this is serious. I mean, leaving is the most dangerous thing that a person can do. And so in our conversations, in our work, whatever that looks like, maybe our first reaction is to say, you got to get away. You got to go. And a lot of times, the people who have just gone without the plan, without the resources, without the safe, I got your back people have ended up being harmed and some of them being killed. We're at 16 domestic violence homicides in Jefferson County this year. We had 2 more this week. I was going to say 15 until about 10:30 this morning, and now it is 16 in this county. That's not statewide. That's just in this county. And so, for those of us who are committed to this work, I mean, we are saying things to people like, yes, we want you to be safe. Yes, we want you to be out of this situation if that is what you are ready to do, but you got to have a plan, and it's got to be a secret plan. It's got to be a secret plan, because when that person leaves that relationship and escapes, they are removing that control from the person who lives to maintain that control. And so that, I think, is the most important message that we have to say to people in an academic setting, but also in a life setting with friends and coworkers. Any forced sex, I mean, that comes up time and time again, and I'm going to tell you that's the last thing people want to tell us about. If we're sitting at a conference table and I'm interviewing you in some sterile environment, that's the last thing that's so private, and I don't want to share that with you. But if you do develop a rapport with someone and they feel safe enough in that space to acknowledge this comes up over and over and over again, they're not going to call it rape. They're not going to call it sexual assault. They're going to say he forced himself on me, or he does things to me that I don't want him to do, or she did this to me in that setting. And so we have to be listening for that, even when people aren't saying the words that we're maybe expecting to hear. Any threats to kill have to be taken seriously. And we know what that sounds like. If I can't have you, no one will. That is common. And you think, gosh, I had a lawyer call me one time and say, I think this person is like, it's everything from the textbook. I think they've just read the book. I'm not sure that it's really, and it sounded funny to say that out loud, but then to go, no, this is what it is. You're dealing with someone, yes, they're saying these things because they are in fear for their life. They have been threatened. They are trying to escape. And so I'm glad you read the book, but no, they probably haven't read the book. This is real. And there's enough research out there that shows if someone is threatening you at that level, that we have to take those threats seriously. And so we ask, have you ever felt threatened? Has she ever said anything that made you feel like you were concerned for your safety? And that's very important. We have to take those seriously. And then this non-fatal strangulation. People say choking, and you all know choking is something that happens internally, but time and time and time again on police reports that we review, on petitions for protection orders at family court, that word is there. It is in that narrative. He tried to choke me. And so that's called strangulation. When someone is putting their hands around your neck, that's maybe one of the greatest forms of control, I would say. And it's not always fatal, thank goodness, but it is a sign that can escalate over time. So if anyone ever, says that is what they're experiencing, we have to take that very seriously. These other factors, depression, substance abuse, we'll hear about that. Those do not cause someone to perpetrate violence on another person. They may be contributing factors, but they don't cause domestic violence. The hostage taking, that's when you'll hear about a whole family. I mean, they're not going to say domestic abuse in the headline. Most often they'll say there's a hostage situation. And if you read down 3 or 4 or 5 paragraphs, you're going to get to what's really going on there, which is probably an ex, right? That's probably someone who has tried to escape that relationship, and now it has resulted in that level of harm. Okay, so deep breath. In any setting, for me personally, in our work, these are the 4 things that I try to communicate. And so in every space that I'm in, I want to be sure to voice these because they're easy to remember. It's not a checklist. It's not an assessment, but we can all, I think, take this to heart and not be afraid to say to someone who's in, potentially a dangerous situation, thank you for telling me. Thank you for telling me. The second thing people tell us that is so empowering is someone saying, I am really sorry that happened to you. If you don't know what else to say, you can say, thank you for telling me, and I'm really sorry that happened to you. No one deserves to be treated that way. That's not your fault. Whatever that language is can be really, really powerful in that moment. I'm concerned for your safety. If you're thinking through these things that we've talked about in the assessment, I think that is empowering. It doesn't mean you can save another person. It doesn't mean you can keep someone from harm, but you can acknowledge to them, I'm really concerned. It sounds like you have been through some situations that were really frightening, and it makes me concerned for your safety. And then there is community support for you, for your family. That doesn't mean you're saying, I'm going to help you, or I'm going to do this or that, if that's not something you're in a position to offer. But just by being here today, you can make a factual statement. There's community support. There are resources that exist. This is a slide from Praxis International. It just overwhelms me whenever I look at it, because in the center there you can see what I think is a family, and these are the systems that they're trying to navigate in order to escape an abusive relationship. And so we don't have time to go through all of that today, but most often they're siloed, and so it requires going from place to place to place to place, taking off work, finding childcare, having your court continued, having your counselor call and say, we've had an emergency, you can't come in today, and that is exhausting. And just trying to navigate the maze can be really, really difficult. I heard someone say one time, traveling around Birmingham, trying to get to all these places I'm supposed to be, looking for a parking place downtown, maybe for the third time, the thing that just makes me go, what, I can't do it anymore. I'm going back home. It's just something as simple, maybe sounds as simple as that, can be the thing that changes someone's mind or is a difficulty that just feels like it's too much for that day. So what we're trying to do, here we're getting to hope. Are y'all ready? We're getting to hope. This is what it looks like now, unfortunately, but thank goodness for the United Way of Central Alabama. They, earlier this year, donated this property to us. It is at 1135 14th Avenue South. I think if you were really eager, you could probably walk there from here, which is super exciting to me when I think about partnerships with UAB in the future. But it doesn't look like this yet. We have some work to do to get it renovated to be a place that's welcoming and hospitable that we can move into, hopefully by the end of the year. But I do want to tell you how we got here, because that is what honestly has kept me going. I think many of you will probably experience this as well. When you work in a field that's draining and challenging and requires a lot of energy and compassion, that you can get fatigued, and I certainly have felt that at times throughout my career, and I would be surprised if you did not come up against that in your careers as well. But this is what I guess gives me the greatest hope today, because I do want to stay in this work. I really do. I'm passionate about it. It's so important. And so the fact that 4 agencies have come together and said, we can collaborate, which is hard. It's really hard. I mean, when you're thinking about bringing law enforcement and social services and a prosecutor's office together, and they've all signed off and said, yes, we're going to all send people to work in this place under one roof, is pretty amazing. We did not dream this up ourselves. It is a model out of California. The first Family Justice Center was in San Diego in 2002. We started hearing about it, 2004, 2005, got excited thinking something like that would be amazing here in Birmingham, but takes a lot of work. You have to have leadership at the heads of those agencies that want to make that happen. There has to be buy-in from the community, certainly. And so people got together. We talked about it. We dreamed about it. Didn't know if it would ever become a reality. 2 years ago, we had the opportunity to speak to Leadership Birmingham, which is an amazing group of people here in the area that come together every year. A different class is selected, and we got the chance to kind of pitch our vision to them. So the YWCA, the Crisis Center, Birmingham Police Department, and the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. And we were overwhelmed with people thought it was a good idea. They wanted to support it. We thought, well, how could we start? We talked to the founder of the Family Justice Center out in California, and he said, you don't need a building. You got to work on your relationships. You got to figure out how you all would collaborate and coordinate your services before you can all just move in together, which seemed like pretty good advice. And so we went to a friend who was director of Empower in Avondale, if you're familiar with that nonprofit. And we said, can we just come over here like one day a month and just bring all of these people together and then advertise? If you are in a situation where you are feeling threatened or concerned for your safety and you want resources, you can speak with a prosecutor, a police detective, a counselor, an advocate, and a lawyer, all in one space. And he said, sure, you can do that on Fridays. So we got together, and I mean, once a month, here we go to Empower, sitting in a room offering services to people. And so at some point we realized maybe we needed to expand to another day. And so, gosh, we could do 2 days a month. And so the DA's office said, we've got space, you can come here, you can do it another day here. And so that soon led to once a week. And then now we are 4 days a week, 9 to 4, operating out of the district attorney's office until we can get into this space. And so, one of the first people that came to us at Empower is a really powerful example of, I guess it helped us know this can really work. This can be a game changer. She brought in this folder of paperwork that was, like this, sat down. You got a prosecutor, a detective, a captain actually, a counselor, and a lawyer. And she said, I don't know what else to do. This person will not stop stalking me, and produced all the printouts of Facebook pages, creating accounts in her name, threatening her, and there was a threat to kill her on one of those, sharing inappropriate information with anybody on that feed. And she was horrified, and she was so scared. And so able to connect all the dots, and I'll fast forward the story, but got a felony stalking warrant on him, and he was convicted. And so that doesn't happen all the time, but it was because you had a prosecutor sitting there with a detective, the prosecutor saying that could be a felony and then you had the support of the advocate. It was incredible. And so that really, I guess, has kept us going to know we can do this. It's going to take hard work from the agencies. The staff are employed with their own agencies. So if you think about it from a community nonprofit aspect, you have people saying, I'm your boss, but I'm going to send you over here to work. And y'all are going to create a team. And I believe and have faith that this is going to work out. And so I think it's probably unprecedented, this kind of collaboration, I'm going to say, in this community. And it feels really good to be a part of doing that kind of work. We have fundraising to do still, which is not fun. It doesn't feel good to me. That's not my expertise, but like I said, do feel passionately about the work. And the Junior League of Birmingham, they feel passionately about it. So they gave us $75,000 and said, here's a start for renovating. Verizon said, we believe in what you want to do. Here's $20,000. Make it go as far as you can. And so already, every time that happens, you have corporate support or other support from foundations. It's a reminder that people do care about these issues. They do want to see collaboration in the community. They fund amazing resources that exist, but we can all get excited about enhancing those and bringing those together under one roof. I think that's what I want to say about One Roof, One Place. And the last piece, I'll just say again, because I just feel like it's important to name that about self-care and finding what it is for you that will allow you to be in whatever field, helping professional that you're in or that you're headed to. We lose good people because it's hard, and we don't always find ways to create that balance. And I think it's on us. Like, we got to carve out that space for whatever brings you joy that's outside of your work. And I came across this quote today from Parker Palmer. It's just part of a post, and it says, only when I'm in possession of my own heart can I be present for another in a healing, encouraging, empowering way. Man, I'm printing that out and putting it on my desk somewhere. So I just encourage you, we don't always talk about that. In some settings it feels a little vulnerable to say that out loud, but that has been my experience. At times I have felt burned out, certainly. For me, it's music. I get to sing with a choir, and I love that. For other people, it's organized sports or something else. And so I just encourage you, wherever you are in your journey, to find that thing that brings you joy so that you can continue to help and serve. The YWCA and the Crisis Center have existed here for a long time. They have a wonderful reputation, very good at what they do. And so a lot of those referrals, maybe to One Place, come through those agencies. We could not have One Place without those two agencies. There would be no One Place. And so, they do a really great job of outreach. They have people that's all they do, is to go to churches, go into the community, school prevention programs. We haven't even talked about prevention. All of those. There are staff positions that's all that they do, is try to get the word out about services. And so I don't think we can ever do that enough, because I still go places where people go, what, the YMCA? No, there is the YMCA, but this is different. So I think opportunities to say in whatever arena you're in that these services exist and they are free and confidential. We speak at churches, we do. We had a powerful conversation at my church in June. We lost someone in our congregation because of domestic violence, and so we can't sweep it under the rug anymore. Those hotlines that are available, the YWCA has one, the Crisis Center has one. They're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, free and confidential. And so again, it's another way that people can call and just get information. And don't even have to say, anything about your identity. You can just ask questions and get connected with resources. We have a Facebook page. OnePlaceBirmingham.com is our landing page, soon to be a website. Baby steps here, but you can always share that, and I would love it if you liked our page, certainly. And so I feel like that's how we're getting the information out. But certainly every time we have an opportunity to talk to people like you now there are more of you who know about our services.